Hello, lovely people. I'm Sinead, and welcome. I thought I would read again from the world of Christopher Robin, and I believe we're going to start here with the four friends. Ernest was an elephant, a great big fellow. Leonard was a lion with a 6-foot tail. George was a goat, and his beard was yellow. And James was a very small snail. Leonard had a stall, and a great big strong one. Ernest had a manger, and its walls were thick. George found a pin, but I think it was the wrong one. And James sat down on a brick. Ernest started trumpeting and cracked his manger. Leonard started roaring and shivered his stall. James gave the huffle of a snail in danger, and nobody heard him at all. Ernest started trumpeting and raised such a rumpus. Leonard started roaring and trying to kick. James went a journey with the goat's new compass, and he reached the end of his brick. Ernest was an elephant and very well-intentioned. Leonard was a lion with a brave new tail. George was a goat, as I think I've mentioned, but James was only a snail. Brownie. In a corner of the bedroom is a great big curtain. Someone lives behind it, but I don't know who. I think it is a brownie, but I'm not quite certain. Nanny isn't certain, too. I looked behind the curtain, but he went so quickly. Brownies never wait to say, "How do you do?" They wriggle off at once because they're so tickly. Nanny says they're tickly, too. Spring morning. Where am I going? I don't quite know. Down to the stream where the kingcups grow? Up on the hill where the pine trees blow? Anywhere, I don't know. Where am I going? The clouds sail by, little ones, baby ones, over the sky. Where am I going? The shadows pass, little ones, baby ones, over the grass. If you were a cloud and sailed up there, you'd sail on water as blue as air. And you'd see me here in the fields and say, "Doesn't the sky look green today?" Where am I going? The high rooks call. It's awful fun to be born at all. Where am I going? The ringdoves coo. We do have beautiful things to do. If you were a bird and lived on high, you'd lean on the wind when the wind came by. You'd say to the wind when it took you away, "That's where I wanted to go today." Where am I going? I don't quite know. What does it matter where people go? Down to the wood where the bluebells grow? Anywhere, I don't know. The island. If I had a ship, I'd sail my ship. I'd sail my ship through eastern seas, down to a beach where the slow waves thunder, the green curls over and the white falls under. Boom, 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 on the sun-bright sand. Then I'd leave my ship and I'd land, and climb the steep white sand, and climb to the trees, the 6 dark trees, the coconut trees on the cliff's green crown, hands and knees to the coconut trees, face to the cliff as the stones patter down. Up, 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 staggering, stumbling, round the corner where the rock is crumbling, round this shoulder, over this boulder, up to the top where the 6 trees stand. And there I would rest and lie, my chin in my hands, and gaze at the dazzle of the sand below, and the green waves curling slow, and the gray, blue, distant haze where the sea goes up to the sky. And I'd say to myself as I looked so lazily down at the sea, "There's nobody else in the world, and the world was made for me." The 3 foxes. Once upon a time, there were 3 little foxes who didn't wear stockings, and they didn't wear sockses. But they all had handkerchiefs to blow their noses, and they kept their handkerchiefs in cardboard boxes. They lived in the forest in 3 little houses, and they didn't wear coats, and they didn't wear trousies. They ran through the woods on their little bare tootsies, and they played touch last with a family of mouses. They didn't go shopping in the high street shopses, but caught what they wanted in the woods and copses. They all went fishing, and they caught 3 wormsies, and they went out hunting, and they caught 3 wopsies. They went to a fair, and they all won prizes, 3 plum puddingses and 3 mince piesies. They rode on elephants and swang on swingsies, and hit 3 coconuts at coconut cheesies. That's all that I know of the 3 little foxes who kept their handkerchiefs in cardboard boxes. They lived in the forest in 3 little houses, but they didn't wear coats, and they didn't wear trousies, and they didn't wear stockings, and they didn't wear socksies. Missing. Has anybody seen my mouse? I opened his box for half a minute, just to make sure he was really in it, and while I was looking, he jumped outside. I tried to catch him. I tried. I think he's somewhere about the house. Has anyone seen my mouse? Uncle John, have you seen my mouse? Just a small sort of mouse, a dear little brown one. He came from the country. He wasn't a town one. So he'll feel all lonely in a London street. Why, what could he possibly find to eat? He must be somewhere. I asked Aunt Rose, have you seen a mouse with a woofly nose? Oh, somewhere about. He's just got out. Hasn't anybody seen my mouse? Jonathan Joe. Jonathan Joe has a mouth like an O and a wheelbarrow full of surprises. You ask for a bat or something like that, he has got it, whatever the size is. If you're wanting a ball, it's no trouble at all. The more you ask for, the merrier, like a hoop and a top, and a watch that won't stop, and some sweets and an Aberdeen Terrier. Jonathan Joe has a mouth like an O, but this is what makes him so funny. If you give him a smile only once in a while, then he never expects any money. At the zoo. There are lions and roaring tigers and enormous camels and things. There are buffalo bisons and a great big bear with wings. There's a sort of tiny potamus and a tiny rhinoceros too. But I gave buns to the elephant when I went down to the zoo. There are badgers and bidgers and bodgers and a superintendent's house. There are masses of goats and a polar and different kinds of mouse. And I think there's a sort of something which is called a wallaboo. But I gave buns to the elephant when I went down to the zoo. If you try to talk to the bison, he never quite understands. You can't shake hands with a Mingo. He doesn't like shaking hands. And lions and roaring tigers hate saying, how do you do? But I give buns to the elephant when I go down to the zoo. Lines and squares. Whenever I walk in a London street, I'm ever so careful to watch my feet. And I keep in the squares and the masses of bears who wait at the corners all ready to eat the sillies who tread on the lines of the street. Go back to their lairs, and I say to them, bears, just look how I'm walking in all of the squares. And the little bears growl to each other, he's mine, as soon as he's silly and steps on a line. And some of the bigger bears try to pretend that they came round the corner to look for a friend. And they try to pretend that nobody cares whether you walk on the lines or the squares. But only the sillies believe their talk. It's ever so important how you walk. And it's ever so jolly to call out, bears, just watch me walking in all of the squares. Market Square. I had a penny, a bright new penny. I took my penny to the market square. I wanted a rabbit, a little brown rabbit, and I looked for a rabbit most everywhere. For I went to the stall where they sold sweet lavender, only a penny for a bunch of lavender. Have you got a rabbit? 'Cause I don't want lavender. But they hadn't got a rabbit, not anywhere there. I had a penny, and I had another penny. I took my pennies to the market square. I did want a rabbit, a little baby rabbit, and I looked for rabbits most everywhere. And I went to the stall where they sold fresh mackerel. Now then, tuppence for a fresh caught mackerel. Have you got a rabbit? 'Cause I don't like mackerel. But they hadn't got a rabbit. Not anywhere there. I found a sixpence, a little white sixpence. I took it in my hand to the market square. I was buying my rabbit. I do like rabbits, and I looked for my rabbit most everywhere. So I went to the stall where they sold fine saucepans. Walk up, sixpence a saucepan. Could I have a rabbit? 'Cause we've got 2 saucepans. But they hadn't got a rabbit, not anywhere there. I had nothing. No, I had gotten nothing. I didn't go down to the market square, but I walked to the common, the old gold common, and I saw little rabbits most everywhere. So I'm sorry for the people who sell fine saucepans. I'm sorry for the people who sell fresh mackerel. I'm sorry for the people who sell sweet lavender, 'cause they haven't got a rabbit, not anywhere there. Daffodowndilly. She wore her yellow sunbonnet, she wore her greenest gown, she turned to the south wind and curtsied up and down. She turned to the sunlight and shook her yellow head and whispered to her neighbor, winter is dead. Water lilies. Where the water lilies go to and fro, rocking in the ripples of the water, lazy on a leaf lies the lake king's daughter, and the faint winds shake her. Who will come and take her? I will, I will. Keep still, keep still. Sleeping on a leaf lies the lake king's daughter. Then the wind comes skipping to the lilies on the water, and the kind winds wake her. Now who will take her? With a laugh she is slipping through the lilies on the water. Wait, wait, too late, too late. Only the water lilies go to and fro, dipping, dipping to the ripples of the water. Politeness. If people ask me, I always tell them, quite well, thank you, I'm very glad to say. If people ask me, I always answer, quite well, thank you, how are you today? I always answer, I always tell them, if you ask me politely, but sometimes I wish they wouldn't. And this one is my absolute, I think, favorite. I don't know why, but it just is. And I think that this is where we're going to end today. So, disobedience is the name of this one. James Morrison, Weatherby George Dupre, took great care of his mother, though he was only 3. James said to his mother, Mother, he said he, you must never go down to the end of the town if you don't go down with me. James Morrison's mother put on a golden gown. James Morrison's mother drove to the end of the town. James Morrison's mother said to herself, said she, I can get right down to the end of the town and be back in time for tea. King John put up a notice. Lost or stolen or strayed, James Morrison's mother seems to have been mislaid. Last seen wandering vaguely, quite of her own accord. She tried to get down to the end of the town, 40 shillings reward. James Morrison, commonly known as Jem, told his other relations not to go blaming him. James said to his mother, Mother, he said he, you must never go down to the end of the town without consulting me. James Morrison's mother hadn't been heard of since. King John said he was sorry. So did the Queen and the Prince. King John, somebody told me, said to a man he knew, if people go down to the end of the town, well, what can anyone do? Now this, J.M.M.W.G. Dupee took great care of his mother, though he was only 3. J. said to his mom, he said he, you must never go down to the end of the town if you don't go down with me. I hope you have a delightful day and a wonderful week, and don't go down to the end of the town unless you take James Morrison with you. See you in the next one. Bye.